Thank you. Okay, so William Butler Yeats, he was born on 1865 and he died on 1939. And this is very significant, this year of death. His year of death is very significant, and why it's significant we'll be discussing later on. And this poem, The Second Coming, that got published on 1919. Okay, and he died. So if you just count the timing, actually 1919, and then after 20 years he died. And this poem is very much famous. Why is it famous? There are so many reasons it's a famous poem. And there's another reason of being famous of this, because everyone loves to quote, especially those who are politicians, those who are musicians, those who are songwriters. They love to quote from Butler's, The Second Coming. And there's a reason. Even if you just read the first line, you'll be falling in love. Actually, why the way the line stirs, the poem stirs, it's a bit cynical, a bit, you can say that in a different way. And now look at that. What's the first line? Turning and turning in the widening jar, right? Okay. Now this is the first line, and as a student, when we hear that first line, turning and turning, what's that? Turning and turning. Now imagine yourself. What's the meaning of turning? It's like whirling, right? In the widening jar. Now if you think the widening meaning is something and it's a continuous form, right? What's mean? Widening. Widening, it's mean that it's a continuous form. It's meaning it's getting wide. It's getting wide. It's getting wide, wide and wide. And now come for the jar. Now there is a huge discussion actually what is jar means. Now if you just look at this one, if my camera is okay, so you can see that, I think you can see it, right? So you can, now this is how it may look like, and another look, and look, it's widening, right? It's right. You see that yes, it's like a tornado or cyclone. And now if you just look at this, it's a cone shape, right? And if you're a student of science, you get it better. And now if I just, okay, so this jar, now if you just start drawing this one, this jar, if you just look at this one, the whole jar, it's getting bigger, right? And now think of this. How did it start? It started from a center, right? And it's started to getting bigger. And now what's getting bigger and what's getting widening? The problem, the tension. And what's the tension? It was 1919. The poem published, and we have finished our First World War I when 1914, and the Second World War began on 1939. You see the connection? It's very interesting. So this guy wrote a poem 1919 because he lived at the time when there was the First World War already. And then he did a prophecy that something is coming. And what's that something is coming? The tension, the problem, the war is coming. He prophesied it. And it happened when? 1939. And it really happened in 1939. But this man passed away. So his prophecy was really good. His prophecy is really profound, the way he has prophesied the system. Now, if you just, and look at the next line. Turning and turning in the widening jar, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, right? And now what's a falcon? What's a falcon? It's a big bird, an eagle, okay? It's a bird. Now, if you just think of that, the falconer is a bird who has got an owner. Okay, it's a prey to an owner, meaning that if you just give a whistle, it will come to you, and if you just give another whistle, it will fly. This is called this is how the falcon behaves. But in terms of, now the problem is what? The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Meaning when the falconer is giving, the falcon is not hearing. Some problem is there. And what's the problem? The problem of leadership. Okay? And it says that when someone mentions here, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, meaning that the problem of leadership in modern times even, you find that there is a communication gap because the falcon doesn't understand what his master is saying to him, the falconer. The whistle doesn't work anymore. And when it flies away, the eagle, now even right now just look at me. So when you just, the jar, the first center, it was small, right? Even when the falconer was flying, it gives a little bump, a little fly, right? And when it starts to fly higher and higher, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it gets bigger and bigger, the full wing, you can find it out, the full wing is flying right now in a full pace, right? So what's the problem? The problem is turning and turning in the widening jar. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Okay, am I correct? Am I correct? Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Now, things fall apart. What's the things fall apart? Things fall apart and the center cannot hold. Now, it's a kind of a gravity right now it comes. Now, this is really interesting, meaning that the problem, the center, the gyre, okay, if you just look at the gyre, there is a center. So the problem is coming from the center and the problem is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but the center cannot control it, cannot hold it. Now if you just think of the whole economic system, if you think of the whole system, the political system even, you'll be finding that there is a problem. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Meaning that problem is going on, but the center, it cannot hold the problem. It's the center cannot solve the problem, or even maybe the center itself is the problem. You get me? So these three lines are extremely famous. Turning and turning in the widening jar, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, the mere anarchy, was that? Loosed upon the world, then? It's very interesting. Now, don't go for the next stanza until I say it. In the next stanza, it says a very interesting fact, and this is what we call actually, right now we use that modern codes. It says that those who are, convinced, those who are educated, they found to be silent, and those who are foul and filthy, they seem to be vocal. That's the problem he's saying in the next stanza. So even after that, he says the mere anarchy. What's the anarchy? It's a chaos. Okay? Chaos, meaning that people are fighting for no reason. People are engaging in war for no reason. And you find that there is always a tension. There is always a bit, it's called like a dicey environment, D-I-C-E-Y. Dicey environment. Why a bit of dicey environment? Because everyone is fighting for something. What is that? Power. Everyone needs power. Everyone wants to hold power. And the problem is where? In the center. What's the center problem? It's getting bigger and bigger like a jar, but it cannot hold it. Meaning that when a problem comes in human life, it needs to be solved from the center. You can't solve if I have a problem in my hand, in my finger, I need to cut the finger that is causing the problem, right? You cannot just go for the other treatment because it may affect the whole hand or the whole body. So the problem is in the center. So I would like to just go for only this stanza and you just read it with me so that you can even memorize with me. Just stay with me. It's very interesting. Turning and turning. In the widening jar, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Then things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy loose upon the world. Now just imagine that. Now if you just look at the word, all the word. Number one, first, turning. Turning means what? Turning and turning, repetition, right? Going on, widening, going on, right? And then what's the problem? He says, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, meaning that the leader, you know, that means we are not following our leader. Why? Because we don't understand our leader. We don't get him what he says. That's the problem Butler Yeats wants to say you. And then the interesting part of this whole poem is that he did prophesize that another war is coming. And this is what we'll be saying here. Another war is coming. Another problem is coming. And trust me, it came on the same year when he was no more, in 1939. The Second World War, the tension of the Second World War started to begin. Thank you so much for enjoying with me the first stanza. We'll be focusing on in the next stanza in the next class. Thank you so much. Can I just give a pause?